Hey everyone, this is a clip from a recent episode of the Men of Steel podcast where we talk about Superman and Superman adjacent topics. If you enjoy this clip, check out the podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your shows. I saw recently they did a version of a Gwinvincible parody cover, and I was like, I need that as a hoodie, like, because that was just too good. So talking about J. Michael Straczynski, I have mixed feelings because Oh, you're gonna be.
This is gonna drive me crazy.
Now you know how I felt as a classical studies major in college, where every Latin class they'd be like, "What's the case of this? How about this case?"
Wow.
Do you know what it's like to be at an 8 a.m. Latin class hungover and hear your name just nonstop? It messes with the brain. All right, Straczynski. Is that good, J. Mike?
We're gonna do it live. We're gonna go with this, okay?
Jameis.
I always loved Rising Stars. I thought that was such a fun, cool series. I was a huge fan of Babylon 5, so that I was already like primed to be like, all right, I'm good for this. Supreme Power, I have mixed feelings about. I think there's a lot of stuff that's really good. I kind of got annoyed that because I was such a fan of the Grunwald maxi series that the areas where they like kind of deviated and went back to being more DC like bugged me, but that was because I was a continuity wonk, and like I've since like sort of I've let that go. Like Hyperion being an alien is one where I'm like, oh, but he's an Eternal, because it was, there's all this like deep lore stuff that I felt like so proud that I knew,
right?
And then
we're very defensive and protective of it because you're like,
exactly.
No, we know that you can't change that. Now I have to relearn it,
right? And I've since divorced myself from that. And like, I think Supreme Power was a really interesting thing that had, it wasn't perfect, but it was interesting at doing like, all right, well, what happens if an alien crash lands? Like, obviously, helicopters show up in the sky immediately. Like they have to find out what's going on. That's clearly going to happen. And this feels like a series where he's doing that, but he is being more true to Superman in that regard. Like while a lot of those elements are being like stripped away and so forth, it's still like a good Clark Kent from Smallville. Like they're not doing anything where it's like, oh well, his parents were actually government stooges that were being paid to like look after him and raise him as an American or something like that. You're not getting any of that. It's also not what people had told me. Like it's not Secret Identity. Like it's still Smallville. It's still Metropolis. It's still a DC world. It's just a new DC world. And I love that. Like, it's what I always wanted. And, like, I'm really mad that I, missed these when they came out. But looking at the publication dates, this is, like, right when New 52 was going on. And I checked out.
And that's actually where I kind of, I speak how my vague knowledge of DC. I was actually taking a break from Marvel because they were just going too everywhere. And I was like, New 52 was kind of my jumping point for DC for a while. And we all know that train wreck. So reading this really reminded me of Grant Morrison's initial run of his New 52 action comics. It was like there's some similarities there. So I kind of like that he got these two sides, or at least like in this case, this was like a much more, it was like a fleshed out story of Grant Morrison's first arc. Because then after that Steel story, and then it just goes to garbage after issue 6.
Once you start dealing with the mimetic nature of Superman.
it starts like I remember issue 6 specifically was like the retelling of its origin story, and it was like, what the fuck are we telling here? It was just so bad. So at least like this Earth one was actually, it reminded me of that one, but with a more fleshed out story, and I like that too, being in that world of Metropolis, because I'm not really familiar with it.
Remember, if you like the clip, after you're done liking and subscribing, check out certainpov.com, where you can find more episodes of the show, as well as a ton of other great shows.